Hey everybody, welcome once again to another afternoon of our live stream. A lot of stuff happened this week, so we'll jump into all of that as we move ahead. This is the first Sunday of the month. That means we got some free memberships to dole out. I was going to say to droll out. Well, maybe I can droll, that's for sure. Here's the thing. I did drop one ahead of time because for some reason I always seem to my science channel always seems to win. So I figured I'll drop it right away. But the second reason is if you look in the chat, underneath where you got the green bar announcing it, you may see a little grayed out area that has allow gifts. If you have not allowed gifts on your YouTube account, you can't win. It's as simple as that. So if you guys want to take a minute, those of you who are here, the early birds get the worms. So if you guys want to just take a minute, make sure that that is turned on for your account before I actually draw those. So before we do that though, there's a ton of people right now in the chat. I'm just going to very quickly say hello to those who are the early birds. We got Sammer in here saying good afternoon all. Mugsy's in the house with a good afternoon. We got 9 in here. Banana bread for life. Yeah, absolutely. And there we go. Mugsy says the exact same thing. Wayne is in the house. I wonder who will be an hour late today. If I had to take a guess, I'm going to say Vic. Vic is sometimes right on time, or sometimes he shows up right at the very end. Sterling's in there with a good afternoon. And let's see, Sammer says, I just realized this allow gift today. Yeah, absolutely. So if you've been wondering, why have I never won? Maybe it's because you don't have gifts turned on. Jay's in the house saying a good old hi. And we got Friggin in here saying afternoon all. All right, guys, let's do this. I love giving away these memberships. So let me just get this all queued up here for you. And this will here be ready to drop in a minute, and we'll see. And hopefully somebody in here who's in the house is gonna win. Let's find out. I've hit the button to buy, so it should be popping up in a moment. All right, here we come. While we're waiting to find out who has won, we've got Chad in the house. Oops, there we go. And we got Mary Finn. Hello, Mary. And where is it that you find the gifts? If you don't see it, then you've already got it turned on. If underneath the thing it doesn't have a little gray box with an allow gifts on it, then you're definitely good. So let's see who has won. Oh, look at this. Chad's won. Wayne has won. Sammer has won. Friggin has won. And Sterling Silver has won. Holy banana bread. I honestly think this is the first time that I've seen all 5 winners in the chat on the time that we've drawn. This is fantastic. I love this. Oh, wow. Very cool. Well, congratulations, guys. You guys are all now channel members. And as channel members, we have a live stream coming up in the middle of this month. So I just posted something to the channel membership today, just to let you guys know, if you have any suggestions for things you want me to cover on that, just throw them up. I'm going to have like a poll that I put out this week so you guys can determine exactly what we're going to talk about in that live stream. In addition to that, we also have the last Thursday of every month is controlled by the channel membership. Now, this one is not an exclusive one like that live stream, so everybody gets to see it, but you guys get to choose. And that's one of the beautiful things, because a lot of times you guys want like a deep dive or something, but it's like, with everybody and their cousin voting on it, sometimes your deep dive doesn't get done. This way, it gives you guys a bit more power as channel members to get what you guys want. And that to me is absolutely fantastic. And Jonathan says, congrats, guys. Thanks for letting us know. Now I have a chance. Yeah, I should have been talking about this over and over again. But yeah, I'll mention it every time I do my monthly giveaway. I'm going to mention that just because I want to make sure everybody has a chance. What did I win? Well, right now, Chad, you are now a channel member. So you get to see all of the exclusive channel membership content that's on the channel. And the beautiful thing is, everything we've already done, you can take a look at any of it. It's there available to you. And you'll also get, I like to send out little things every so often to the membership just, thoughts, ideas, things like that. I also do a mid update to the 1 to 100K challenge for the membership as well. So yeah, you'll get all of that. And I am looking to expand that even further as ideas pop into my head. You're very welcome, Sammer. You're welcome, freaks, or freakin'. I'm so used to freaking Oracle, so it's hard to get used to just calling you friggin'. Perfect. Appreciate it. Congratulations, everyone, says Muggsy. Okay, sounds great. Banana bread. Yeah, there might be some virtual banana bread in there for you as well. Maybe one of the things I can do is I'm playing around a lot with some of the AI visual stuff. So maybe I can drop some of those in there if you guys want to see some of the crazy, silly things I'm coming up with on AI. And yeah, thanks. Just in time for Christmas. Well, there'll be one more draw before Christmas as well. So there's nothing wrong with that. And, to me, I find it just a lot of fun. Those of you who haven't won, if you do want to be a channel member, just below where we got the post information, or even I think just as well below where it shows whether you've liked the video and that, there's a thing called join. That will allow you to join up and become a member. Simple as that. And Mario, if you only see the green gift box, then you probably have it turned on. Because I believe, I could be wrong because sometimes YouTube can be a bit flaky, but I believe only the people who don't have it turned on are going to get the little box that says turn it on. And if you turn it on for one channel, I think it also turns it on for every channel that you follow. So if somebody wants to give you a free membership, hey, it's there for the taking, which is kind of a good thing. And this is kind of goes with the whole Twitch. Those of you who have ever been over on Twitch, because Twitch is mostly gaming streamers that do games and things like that, they have a thing where you can gift subs, and some people go crazy with it. I was on one channel one night. It was back in the old World of Warcraft days, a guy by the name of Sharkin, and people just got into this big, I don't know what it was, generosity hit everybody, and they were gifting things left, right, and center to each other, and it was absolutely crazy. And that's but that's a Twitch environment. It's not quite so strange over here, but YouTube has been adopting a lot of the things that they do right over on Twitch, and that's one of them. All right, so, okay, where are we at? Okay, I want to talk a tiny bit about Blossom. As you guys all know, I'm an ambassador over on Blossom, so I'm always saying some nice things about it, but I do love the app. So those of you who are not yet on Blossom, there is a link down below for Blossom where you can go over, check out my profile over there, throw me a follow. You can talk to pretty much anybody who's anybody in social media. There's still a few big social media folks in Canada on the finance side that have not yet signed up. Hopefully soon, though. But there's a lot of us who are there, and I think it's absolutely a lot of fun. So anyway, that's Blossom. All right. We've also, of course, we do have some news and things like that. And I want to try something a little bit different too. Just going to pull this up here for a second. So this is my iPad, and ChatGPT can now actually talk to you. So I just wanted to show you guys this before we start the news. So I'm gonna turn ChatGPT on, and we'll have a quick conversation with ChatGPT. Let me try to get this straight here. Okay. Hello, ChatGPT. How are you?
I'm here for a conversation. What would you like to talk about today?
I'd like to talk about finance. Do you know a lot about finance? Hello, ChatGPT? Hello? Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. How can I assist you today?
Perfect. What are your three top tips for a new person coming into investing? Let's see what she says here, folks.
Certainly. Here are 3 top tips for someone new to investing. 1, start with education. Before diving into the stock market or other investments, take the time to educate yourself. Learn the basics of investing, including different asset classes, risk tolerance, and investment strategies. There are many online resources, courses, and books available to help you get started. 2, set clear goals and a budget. Define your financial goals and objectives for investing. Are you saving for retirement, a major purchase, or just looking to grow your wealth?
See, this is pretty cool.
Once you have clear goals, create a budget and allocate a portion of your savings towards investments. This will help you stay disciplined and avoid overextending yourself. Number 3, diversify your portfolio. Avoid putting all your money into a single investment or asset class. Diversification involves spreading your investments across different types of assets, such as stocks, bonds, real estate, and more. Diversifying can help reduce risk, as losses in one area.
I'm going to cancel her out there at the moment, but as you can see, ChatGPT has come a long way. And I love the voice, actually. It's funny, there used to be a whole bunch of the Open AI videos where they used a voice, and that was one of the voices that they used. So it's pretty cool. I find that AI is sounding pretty darn good, and it's basically coming back pretty fast. So be interesting to see where we are a year from now. All right. Hi, don't forget about that banana trick or treater. Oh yeah. Halloween, one of the first people that came to the door, one of the first trick-or-treaters was dressed as a banana. I loved it. I was just like, I even said to her, I said, you're the first banana I've seen today. And she was like, oh, wow, really? As if a lot of people dress as bananas on Halloween. But yeah, first kid was dressed as a banana. That was absolutely awesome. 9 says, you played WoW. I played until the end of Wrath. Yeah, I played until just before Dragonflight, actually. After Dragonflight, kind of other things in my life started taking up a lot more time, and so really didn't have time for it anymore. But yeah, I used to play quite avidly, and pretty cool. Yeah, that's the whole neat thing about ChatGPT and where it's going. I mean, eventually we could get to a point where I think we could have like some kind of a robot in our house with an AI that's talking to us all the time. But this is pretty cool, and I imagine with stuff like this, we're really going to see a lot of the your Googles and Alexas and that starting to behave a lot more human-like, I guess. So I think that's pretty darn cool. All right. Holy cow, we've never gone this deep into a show without hitting the good old news. So let's move over to our first news story of the day. So zombie firms in trouble. So a zombie firm, basically, this is a company that relies on adding a whole bunch of new debt to keep themselves afloat. So they're not making, basically they're unprofitable. So they're an unprofitable business. They float around, they keep eating more and more debt. And for whatever reason, they don't decide to throw in the towel, which they probably should, considering that they're just making the situation worse as they go. But there's a lot of these companies out there. So in the US, their estimate works at about 10% of all companies are zombie companies. Now in Canada, it is a little bit better. It's about 5 to 7%. But here's the scary thing. With all of these rate hikes, with debt becoming so much more expensive, these zombie companies are growing. In Canada, they're actually saying that we've got about 18 to 36% of our businesses out there that are on the verge of becoming classified as a zombie company. And in addition to that, a lot of these zombie companies, they're on the verge of going bankrupt. And here's the thing, while they're still existing and as they're fighting, if you think about it, they're a bit of a drain on, basically on the economy. They've got employees who, instead of being with somebody else, a company that's profitable, a company where they can actually grow, they're sort of stuck in these dead end jobs that are going to end. So that in itself helped actually contribute to some of the labor issues that we had a while back. And we still have labor issues depending on where you are. So for example, I think I'm thinking tourism, restaurants, they're definitely in big trouble when it comes to employees. And there's a couple of good questions here I just noticed as well. So let me just grab those for a second. Yeah, Lisa's in the house saying, good afternoon, everyone. Now, here's a good question. Abalash says, do you think AQN or Northwest Health are zombie companies? No. They're in trouble, yes, but they will become profitable. I think both of these companies have that possibility to become profitable within probably a 3-year time frame. So I think, and with the zombie company, they have no chance of becoming profitable within a 3-year time frame. So no, I wouldn't say that they're zombie companies, but they're definitely a little bit scary sometimes. Bleak is in the house. Bleak says, hey, which is fantastic. So, yeah, so these zombie companies, we're now in a situation, as long as the rates are high, we're going to start losing some of these. And we're going to have other companies that fall into that. Now, it doesn't mean you can fall into a zombie company situation. Doesn't mean you're going to fall. But once you are in that situation, then you really start having to make some serious decisions. Because I know myself, if I was running a business and I'm at a point that the only way I can stay afloat is to just get myself deeper and deeper into the hole, well, then it's time to start looking about whether or not I want to start looking at bankruptcy as an option. And as Wayne just said, WeWork just declared bankruptcy. So WeWork probably, if they didn't declare bankruptcy, they probably would have become a zombie firm. So those are the good old zombie firms. Sammer says zombies should be uh, zombies should be go anyway. Good for a long term. For the jobs perspective is bad in the short term, but is healthy. Get some cleanup. Okay, yeah, and that's the thing. I think what we really need is, and we're going to talk a little bit about rates today because there's a few different stories. I think that the rate hikes and just the high rate situation, high interest situation, I think is affecting a lot of different things. So we'll definitely look more at that as this afternoon starts to roll out. All right, let's take a quick gander at our next story because this is kind of neat as well. So China, there's been a lot of people, like I've seen a lot of YouTubers. Most of them have been American YouTubers. Really, really, really going on about the situation in China and saying that things are dire and desperate and that it's going, that the collapse of China is going to bring the rest of us down. Well, it's not looking so bad in China, to be honest, anymore. Their last GDP numbers came in and they actually came in strong. So China reported a 4.9% growth. Now that's higher than what was estimated, which is great. Now they have, I mean, it is true that they have been struggling for about a year, but that economy, it's showing signs of stabilization and it's showing that, there's still some hope with China. Now, on the bad side though, I mean, when it comes to the country's property sector, that's still in complete disarray. So property investment sank between January and September. It sank about 9.1% compared to last year. So China, we got some good stuff, we got some bad stuff, but I think overall it's looking a lot more stable. And so if you were in that camp that the Chinese economy was going to start pulling the rest of the world down, maybe not so. I think we could be okay when it comes to China, which is pretty darn good. Of course, our GDP came out as well, and we're going to talk about that in a little tiny bit. Before we do, though, I'm just going to jump to that next story because it sort of ties into that whole chat GPT thing. And that is, well, Biden has come out and he has done an executive order that oh, and just before we get to that, Wayne says, never trust data from China. They are state secrets. Yeah, there's always that too. I mean, China is very good at hiding issues. I mean, look at COVID. They weren't very open about COVID when that happened. If they had been, I think, hope the pandemic may not have progressed the way it did. So, and Sammer says, who truly believes in China's database? It's hard to get the real situation over there. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I think some of the financial data, though, just because it's evidenced by just their economic output and that you can see from outside of China, that does give me a little bit more confidence when I see things like what's happening with their GDP, for example. Muggsy says, hit that like button. Yeah, absolutely. And Nine says, smash the like button. Yeah, when you hit that like button, it basically just tells YouTube that, people are watching, and it sends it out to people who are maybe sitting around on a Sunday afternoon with nothing to do. And maybe some of those people actually like some finance news. So that's always a good thing, or whatever it is we talk about, because, you guys have control of the stream. So that's always a good thing. So that's what I love. I love the fact that the news is more or less the medium. But we can talk about anything and everything, and we can go off on tangents, that's for sure. All right, our next news story. This is the one I was kind of hinting at. So, a technical recession. So, you guys have probably seen the headlines that, we had our month over month GDP came out this week, and it indicates that, that we are struggling. So, and you'll probably have heard the word technical recession being thrown around a little bit. So, the new GDP numbers, what they're showing is that Canada's economy basically stagnated in August. And that's actually interesting because we actually thought it was going to grow, but it didn't. It actually stagnated. And if it stays flat in September, and that's what it's looking like, it's actually looking like we're going to have a negative GDP for September, which would then create what we would call a technical recession. So a technical recession is basically 2 straight quarters of negative GDP growth. But here's the thing. That's just a technical recession. They don't have to call it. We can have a technical recession without it being called into as an official recession. So there is a group that handles that. Unfortunately, right now, whether or not we're in a technical recession, to me, it's the same. It doesn't really matter. I mean, if we're in a technical recession, I mean, people are really feeling it. If you look at the GDP per capita, that has just absolutely been decimated. So as far as I'm concerned, we're in a technical recession at this point, but we'll see more of how this happens. And it's really interesting because this is Canada. The US, their economy is not in a technical recession because they're actually doing a little bit better down there. So this could be a situation where we have a very soft recession in Canada, and maybe the US is able to stick to that soft landing. So we'll have to sort of see how this all works out. Oh, and as Abalesh says, don't click on the like button twice, folks. You undo the like. Or you could click on it 3 times, right? Just to make sure, and then bring it back. So yeah, you just want it to be blue, or I don't know if people can have different colors on. I suppose if you're like blue colorblind, it wouldn't turn blue if you clicked it. But anyway, that's the good old like button. All right, let's do. All right. Oh, we're flying through these today. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. That means that we can then just, once the news is done, we can just talk about anything and everything, which is great. All right. So let's pull this back up here. All right. So our next story, Canadians passing on surveys. I almost passed on this story, but something about it just kind of annoyed me. Not annoyed me, amused me. So Stats Canada is apparently having trouble getting Canadians to take surveys. So before the pandemic, they had a response rate of 87%. So that's, of all the people they would reach out, 87% would be, okay, yeah, sure, we will do this survey. Now, here's why it's kind of important. Before I tell you why it's important, right now we're at about 70%. So that's where we're at right now. So only about 70% of survey people they reach out to are actually partaking in the surveys now. So they're basically creating a smaller sample pool as a result. So a dwindling survey response rate, it hurts the credibility of the data and some of the insights that can be drawn from it. So here's the interesting thing. So given how crucial like labor numbers are, and the reason they're crucial is a lot of times policy decisions get based on some of the numbers coming back from these surveys. So the smaller the sample size, it makes it a bit more concerning because, how accurate is the data? Now, even though the sample size is shrinking, Stats Canada is still saying, hey, don't worry about it. The quality of our data remains high. Well, I would be more, I would be happier with it if people would start doing the surveys again. And nobody knows exactly why the number dropped so much, other than the fact that some of the surveys coming out in the pandemic were about work. And I think a lot of people were afraid to answer some of the work related surveys. Um, maybe because they thought it might affect their benefits or their, like the CERB or the or some of those other pandemic related benefits. I'm not sure, but that's been what's going on. All right. Abalash has another question. Do you think October, November 2023 is the low we had been looking for, or any potential for the market to fall further before a bull market? That's a great question. Um, technically, technically, if you look at last October, that was the big low. We're nowhere even near that low right now, even though we have. I mean, we've been suffering, through the last part of the summer into September and October. So far, November started off to get a little bit green, which is great. And there's a potential for at least another week of green, just based on the fact that there's really nothing on the docket in the US and Canada next week that would be a really, really big impact on the market. So I'm thinking this week's going to be green. I'm looking forward to one more green week, and then we'll have to see what happens after that. But I do think we still have a little bit more pain to go. I don't know if we're going to get down to that low, though, that we had last October. I do think we'll see a little bit more. So I've kind of I heard somebody saying that they think we're in a dead cat bounce. And it feels a little bit like a dead cat bounce because we had that big drop through September and October, and now we're kind of bouncing up a little bit. So I think I think we're going to go up and we're going to come back down a little bit. It'll be interesting to see how far down we go. And one of the other factors, of course, is with the rate hikes, we have a lot of people who are renewing mortgages, and we're going to talk about that in a story a little bit further down. But yeah, I think we have a little bit further down to go. But at this point, and here's the thing, nobody knows what the market's going to do. If we did, we would be very, very rich if we could absolutely 100% predict the market. So you have to sometimes hedge your bet. Even though I think it's going to go down, right now the prices are pretty low, and it is a good time to be doing dollar cost averaging, or looking at some of these things or grabbing some of your favorite stocks, whether it be, Scotiabank or CIBC or TELUS, because even if it goes a little bit lower, if you take a look once we do get into a bull market and things start coming back up and we're on the other side of all of this pain, they're going to look really good whether you bought them now or maybe you managed to get it a little bit cheaper because, so you have to kind of keep that in mind. And the danger is sometimes the danger of trying to guess when that bottom is that you can completely miss it. So let's just say that I'm wrong about this dead cat bounce. And let's just say the bottom's in, we're on the way up, and we just don't get back down here where we are even right now. Well, if you're holding cash and you're waiting, then you're never going to get that opportunity. And by the time you finally by the time it finally sort of sinks in that we're on the way up, it's too late at that point. You can still jump in, but at that point, some people are like, oh, I'm just going to wait for it to come back down again. And they could be waiting a long time if we do move into a bull market. I don't think that's going to happen, though. But like I said, nobody can predict the market. So you always want to keep that in mind. Now, Wayne said hedge funds sell their losses in October. We also have the signs of the beginning of the Santa Claus rally. The Fed is predicting a soft landing. Yeah, but there's one little thing that we have to remember as well. We also have tax loss harvesting season. Like, as far as I'm concerned, we're in it already. But you'll probably be looking at least the beginning of December. You may see some red in there. Even if the market's doing fine, that's just tax loss harvesting as people are trying to get this all closed out before the end of the year. So that is a possibility as well, because that's one of the reasons, like with the Santa Claus rally, part of the reason that it is a thing is that it basically begins Santa Claus rally. It's not, a lot of people don't realize that the date the Santa Claus rally starts is around the 24th of December. and it goes into the very first week of January. And that is when all of the tax loss harvesting is complete. So people then who have sold off assets are then looking to buy new assets. Some people wait until January, some people will do it right at the end of the year. And the reason there's that big gap for the end of the year is that you want to make sure that, all of these things that you're doing, it takes about 3 days for all of these, things to settle on the market. So you want to make sure you give yourself ample time. Otherwise, you can run into some tax ramifications. If you were to, do all your tax loss harvesting on the 31st, it's not going to take. You're not going to be able to use that because you will not have settled those things, and the tax man will be like, So that's just one of those things to sort of keep in mind with that. All right. Our next story of the day is all about immigration. So, one of the big issues that we've had when it comes to the housing market has been our immigration. So, one of the issues is that we have been bringing a lot of people into Canada, and it's gotten to the point that we're bringing in about 1 million people a year. It's just not sustainable. It's good for the GDP, but at the same time, it's not good for the fact that we don't have the houses to house all these people. So the federal government is finally kind of catching on to this. And so they are planning to maintain some of their immigration targets at around 500,000. So they're basically going to cut them back in half, which is fantastic. It is, it's good to see them cut them down. Now, I know that a fear that more newcomers will this is just one of these days. I mean, a lot of people do fear that by having a whole bunch of people immigrating into the country, that it's just going to make the housing crisis that much worse. And that's a possibility, absolutely. In a recent survey, they actually found that 44% of Canadians agreed there is too much immigration. Compared to a year ago, that same survey, it was 27% of people felt that we had too much immigration. Immigration is still crucial, of course, for our growth and for labor force stability. So, especially as our population is rapidly aging. So all of our baby boomers are starting to move out of the workforce. We're going to need to rely heavily on immigration to sort of help backfill that. So, it's kind of this thing. What we really need to do is, it's nice to cut immigration down to 500,000, not push it, not go crazy like they did with the 1 million. But really, 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 really start working on building houses, getting places for people to live. And then if we get that under control, sure, ramp up immigration a bit further. Now, Wayne says, watch for a yield drop in the 10-year treasury bills. The USD is also faltering. Yeah, and that's one of these things. The treasury is still pretty much inversed, and that is a sign of a recession. So the US, we're in this really weird kind of situation. I don't know if it was the pandemic or just a whole bunch of, almost like a perfect storm of weirdness. Everything from pandemic to baby boomers moving out of the workforce. I think it's created even, and this is not just Canada, the US as well. So we have like, when you look at the yields are indicating, yeah, there should be a recession. And normally, it's when they start to uninverse that the recession will come in. So we're going to have to take a look and see how that looks. So can the U.S., like I said, right now, the U.S. is not in a technical recession. Their economy is still fairly strong, but I imagine that has to come to a head. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see something down the road. But we'll have to take a look. And this will be a weird thing. Like if Canada goes into a light recession and then we come out of it and then the US goes into a recession, that could be a very interesting thing to watch to see whether it, almost creates a double dip recession for us or whether we're still able to hold ourselves out of it. So we'll have to take a look and see how that's all working. Now, Mike Gay says low birth rate is a big issue. Need new people before the population get older. Yeah, that is an issue. That's a huge issue. We're not having enough kids. That's why immigration is such a big issue right now. Some of the best places you can look at is if you look at the Maritimes. The Maritimes, one, and their issue there isn't even, I mean, yeah, they still have a low birth rate, but they also have everybody leaving because there's better opportunities in the rest of Canada. So they're in a situation where they are relying heavily on immigration. So, Nova Scotia, PEI, New Brunswick, they're really relying on immigration to try to get their numbers back up. And they have that other issue too, that once people do immigrate to, one of the maritime provinces, um, after a while, and once they've got their feet wet and they kind of, got into being, being in Canada, it pretty much soon catches on that, oh my God, there's better money in the West, or there's better money in Ontario, and they leave. So they also have to try to not only get immigration in, but they got to keep them. So, and that's kind of one of the big issues. Like even with healthcare, when you look at the doctor shortage, it's massive in the Maritimes. And part of it is that there's, once again, better money for doctors in Ontario or in Alberta or BC. So they leave as well. So there's a lot of interesting things that's going on when it comes to all of this. And I think it would be fun. I'd love to be able to time travel about 10 years into the future and then just sort of look back on all of this and see how it all ends up piecing together, because I think it's definitely really, really interesting. Sammer says those governments don't stop printing money. We get diluted and can't afford the same thing we used to get. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the Bank of Canada has been raising concerns. And they're saying, look, we're doing what we can to get inflation under control, but the current government keeps spending money and they keep on doing it over and over again. So, yeah, I mean, I think in 2025, when we do get our election, well, here's the thing. Over the whole, like, I know over the whole carbon tax thing right now, the NDP have actually said they're going to vote with the Conservatives because there's a Conservative bill coming up on Monday, basically saying that on home heating fuel, the tax should be the carbon tax should be suspended right across the board. And the NDP have actually said they're going to support that bill. So that's going to be very interesting on Monday. Now, this is not a confidence vote, but it would be very interesting if the Liberals were to try to make it a confidence vote to try to force the NDP to come back and support it. I don't know what will happen if that happens, but I don't think they're going to, though. So we have to sort of look at how this is all going to work out. And Jill says 20% of immigrants end up leaving Canada. And I imagine, I don't know, that could be the right number. That's another issue that we have too, is a lot of times people will immigrate to Canada, get out of their bad situations, maybe get some education, and then look at some of the better opportunities that they might have, for example, in the United States, or maybe they just take some of the stuff back home in some cases. But yeah, we do lose a certain amount of the immigrants as well, unfortunately. I mean, or maybe fortunately right now, but the problem is usually the people who are leaving are the ones who are really well educated. And the last thing we want is a bunch of doctors who are immigrants coming and then leaving, because, we still have that whole healthcare issue as well. All right. Oh, this is beautiful. We're getting through these nice and fast. Now, our next story is about mortgage payment shock. So a report came out from RBC Capital Markets analyst Darko Mihalik. I probably crucified the poor guy's last name, but he's painted an interesting picture. So he's basically saying that about 60% of their outstanding mortgages are facing payment shocks in the next, roughly 3 years. So 2 to 3 years. What he's basically talking about is these are those renewals, all those people who locked in really good rates in the pandemic. Well, that's when all of those renewals, the big chunk of them, are coming up in 3 years. And that's where we're going to have this situation. And there's going to be a bit of a payment shock for them, because what they're saying is that, let's see here, that people who are renewing in 2025 right now, as it stands at 5%, at a key rate of 5%, they're looking at about a 33% increase in their mortgage right away. And depending on, and that's just an average, so some might see more, some might see less, but we're looking at roughly 33%. And right now, apparently they're looking at, for RBC, they're looking at $315 billion worth of mortgages that are set to renew. And most of these are variable rate mortgages. So that's going to be really, really, really interesting. So one of the things is that unless we have some significant declines in the interest rates, some of these credit losses are going to be big and the banks are going to take a hard hit. So here's an interesting thing. And I think I was watching this on Bloomberg last week. They had a guy on who was saying that you're going to see some significant rate cuts just before all of these mortgages come up. And he said the reason for that is that they should have the interest rate at least the interest rate. They should have inflation at least move. They should be under 3% by 2025. And that if they then do their cutting then sort of strategically, they can avoid a lot of this pain and a lot of the pain and suffering that this is going to cause on, on all of these people who are about to renew. And that might at least alleviate some of the pressure that the banks are under. So we'll have to see how this is going to work out. I think it's going to be really, really interesting, but that's what they're looking to do. So we'll have to see. I don't know whether or not the Bank of Canada cares, but to me, it sounds logical. It's like, you know what? Yeah, if you've got this big 60% of your mortgages all coming up in, in 2025, it might be the play. That might be the time to say, okay, look, get that inflation rate under control so that we can cut some rates just to alleviate some of the issues that the banks are going to have with mortgages going into default and all of that fun stuff. Because I think the temporary solution they've been using right now of amortization, I don't think it's, I think it's more problematic than it solves, at least for people. You don't want to be in a situation where your mortgage, you're paying it and you've got it amortized so far out that you're not even paying all of the interest. So you're actually getting, more and more in debt every year. That's just a recipe for disaster. So hopefully we can see something happening along that route. Okay, now we still got I do have a few things in the crypto rounds, but before we get to that, I got one more question here. Cowichan Technology Tutors. Do you think it's a good time to buy banks? The answer, yes. I do think it's a good time to buy banks. I think right now, they're not going to see, the banks are going to survive. They are still solid, and I think they're all still blue chips as well. So right now you're getting really crazy dividend yields. So if you take, the two best ones right now, Scotiabank and CIBC, with both of them, you're getting almost a 7% or around 7% yield. That's just absolutely crazy. But here's the thing: they're all going to recover, and the government's not about to let any of the big six. I think the big six pretty much have, I don't want to call it plot armor, but in a way they do. I don't think there's any chance of these banks ever going under. I think they're solid. They're going to be here on the other side. They're going to recover. So I think right now, investing in banks is not a bad thing. Yeah, I would definitely say, and yeah, Canadian banks, definitely. And that's what we're talking. Yeah, we're definitely talking about the Canadian banks. Now, with US banks, the bigger banks are probably fine, but you want to be careful with the US about regional banks, because it's those smaller regional banks in the US that are actually have a bit more issues. So the ones that actually did go under, those were the issues that we were running into. They weren't the bigger banks. So, if you're looking at Bank of America, they're not going to go under. But even then, we get back to Canada, I think the Canadian banks are even more solid, just because we don't have a lot of them. Now, we do have a few smaller banks, things like Canadian Western Bank, Laurentian Bank. I think they're still fine. I wouldn't, though, bet the farm on them, but I do still like them, and I think they'll still recover fine. Like Canadian Western Bank is actually they're actually pretty high up on the dividend aristocrat list. So they've been around for a while. So I still like them. They're probably my favorite non big six would definitely be, well, also EQ Bank as well. I like EQ Bank, but CWB is one that I do like. Let's see here. Let's see, partial positions by 1/3 now and see what happens. Yeah, that's a good. I mean, and that's kind of the whole dollar cost averaging thing too, right? So if you buy a third, let's say you have $3,000, I just because that's simple. If you have $3,000, you're thinking about putting into banks, and you're not sure if they're done falling, you could always put $1,000 in now, and maybe they do fall a bit more, and you could throw in another 1,000. And if you get lucky and they fall even further, and then throw in your third 1,000, that would be your perfect situation. But if you did buy 1,000, say you threw in 1,000 now, and they didn't go down any further, and they actually started going back up, well, then at least you got that 1,000 at a good price, and maybe then throw in your other 1,000 and another 1,000. It's the whole dollar cost averaging idea. Let's see. Wayne Smith says, "What happened to the surplus profit tax that the feds were proposing?" Um, I know they were proposing it, but I don't think it ever got anywhere, or if it still might still be sitting in the back bench. So I'm not sure what the status of it is. But yeah, so this was a tax basically, and I think a lot of people wanted to aim it at the energy sector. A lot of the energy companies, when they were making really, really, really in crazy profits, um, this was a tax that basically would say if you make so much, and a certain amount in profit, you're going to get taxed a bit more. Now, when that was being proposed, though, then then the market fell right after that, and I think that's kind of why it kind of fell into the back burner. And I haven't heard anything else about it recently at all. But now, if oil and gas turns around and makes a recovery, and that's kind of what's been happening lately. And there's also experts that think that if the current not economical, but the current geopolitical situation over in the Middle East, like if that whole issue between Hamas and Israel gets a lot worse, that could really start pumping the price of oil. So that's one of those interesting things. And here's another shortage as well. Not in the US, but right now there's a huge demand for ammunition because there's so many wars going on. A lot of companies are basically just pumping and trying to create as much ammunition as possible. So I think there's definitely a couple of really big ones in the US. So it'd be interesting to sort of watch some of these bigger ammunition companies and see how all of the wars that are going on right now, how that's all going to impact. Because I have a feeling that there could be some opportunity there. So just something to sort of keep in mind. All right. Crypto news. Not a lot of crypto news this week, but we got a little bit. So there we go. Just get back to here. Perfect. There we go. Perfect. Okay. So Crypto Quant, they are a blockchain analytics firm. So they actually predicted that if we have a spot Bitcoin ETF in the US, they believe it's going to actually grow the total crypto market by about $1 trillion. So that's huge. Now, 900 billion of that trillion would actually be going to Bitcoin. So this is kind of interesting. Now, with the rumors recently of a spot Bitcoin ETF on the verge, we had a couple of interesting spikes in the price of Bitcoin from that as well. Now, the other Bitcoin story of the week, of course, is our good old buddy. Well, not really, but the good old guy there, Sam Bankman-Fried. He was found guilty in all 7 of the charges related to that whole FTX mess. He hasn't been sentenced yet, but he has earned the possibility of up to 110 years in prison. So we'll have to sort of see how that goes. His defense was mostly that, lawyers told me to do it. I didn't even really know what any of it was. That's kind of his defense. And they didn't buy it. The judges, the jury, nobody bought it. So now he is going to be, Wayne just said it perfectly. Sam Bankman has been totally fried, pretty much. So, well, at least that is mostly over. It'll be interesting to hear about the sentencing, but yeah. So that is kind of interesting. So next week, there's nothing really of significance in Canada or the US. Nothing really big, at least market driving. Now, earnings wise in Canada, we got a whole bunch of stuff on the agenda. Constellation Software, so they are their earnings reports coming up, and they actually are one of the companies that did pretty good in the last quarter. Also, Suncor Energy, so SU, they did well in the last quarter as well. TRP, so TC Energy, they didn't do as well, but they've got theirs coming up. Manulife Financial, they've been pretty flat. Now their previous earnings report was amazing, and they went up pretty big. But we'll have to see how this one turns out. Great West Life and Rogers are also going to be dropping theirs, and Hydro One, as well as Canadian Tire. So Hydro One is kind of, to me, that's kind of like a wild card when it comes to their earnings report. They were kind of flat, but a little bit up in places in that quarter. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not they are. But if I'm betting on anybody having good earnings reports, it would definitely be Constellation Software and Suncor Energy out of the group. All right. And 9 says, do you like Treasury Direct or Interactive Brokers? You can buy T-bills and bonds directly there. I use T-bills ETF from a cash position. I don't really use either of them myself. I do everything, pretty much all of my trading. I do through either a little bit with Wealthsimple, but a lot of it's over at the National Bank Direct Brokerage. They definitely have a lot of stuff there, but I haven't really touched Treasury Direct, Interactive Brokers. And let's see here. Do you watch Bloomberg or CNN during the day? Any trade on the news? I don't really have time to watch the news per se, but I sort of follow all of the stuff, because everything on Bloomberg, for example, it gets dumped onto YouTube. A lot of the stuff from CNN, so a lot of different news sources will get dumped, and I will drop that because I'm also doing other stuff during the day as well. So sometimes, for example, I'm editing, or I am doing some swing trading. So I have basically 1, 2, 3, 4. I got 4 workspaces that I work with. So one of them is for YouTube. The other 2 are mostly trading. And then the third one is sometimes trading or sometimes some other stuff. And so it really just depends on the day. But I try to pay attention to, mostly anywhere, well, heck, everything from Bloomberg, CNN, Wall Street Journal stuff. I get a whole bunch of different stuff. Let's see here. Yeah, absolutely. I think SU is going to look pretty good with their earnings. So I think you're okay on that one, Mike. And Wayne wants to know what Treasury ETF 9 uses. So that's kind of interesting. All right. So, all right, I'm going to move out of there. We will push this here back to, all right, there we go. So we got through the news, which is fantastic. So now we can just talk about anything and everything that you guys want to talk about. I'll let you guys know what's coming up on the channel this week. Tuesday. I'm so used to when I used to have the Monday videos. Tuesday, what we have is something a little bit different. We're going to look at some total return, or half of them are more growth than total return, but we're going to look at some total return stocks that are exclusively on the TSXV. So we're going to look at a few of those and see what we can come up with on Tuesday. And then we have, of course, our next deep dive on Thursday. Now, here's the thing. On Friday. I actually do the editing on Thursday, and then it comes out on Friday. Right now, I believe that Brookfield Corporation is currently winning that battle. So if you haven't voted yet, Definitely go to the community tab and vote. Make sure you get your vote in so that way there we can find out what is going to go on. All right. David wants to know, what do you think the markets will be like in Canada this week? Um, my gut's telling me green, only because there's just not a lot of catalysts out there. So I'm thinking we're going to have a mostly green week. Not to say we won't have any red at all. We might have a little bit of red, but I think for the most part, I think the week will end higher than it starts. So I do think we're going to see a green week this week. Now, hopefully I'm not wrong, but that's what I'm thinking of. See, so 9 says I only do short-term T-bills for cash. So SHV for US and C-bill for CAD. And I do the cash and PSA ETFs too. Yeah, so there's a lot of good cash ETFs out there as well. I do like the cash one itself. So CASH. So that's one. I think, is that Horizon? I think it may be Horizon, but I just think of it as CASH. All right. AEP.V on Tuesday. I don't know if AEP is one of the ones in the list, but I can. Give me a second here. I'll take a look. I will see if that is one of them. AEP is not, but keep in mind, I have criteria. So when I do a video, so when I do one of these lists, one of the criteria on this list is they all had to have a share price over $5. So I think I don't know what AEP is at. Let's find out. AEP, good old Atlas Engineer. I do like them. I actually own, I think I have some AEP as well. But yeah, they were under the $5, and that's why they sort of didn't come in on this one. So the idea of this one here was mostly to avoid the avoid penny stocks. That's why I will throw something like $5 on there. I really do want to do a penny stock video because I've never really done a penny stock video yet. So that is something I've got on the back burner. Maybe the channel members will say, hey, Candace, do a penny stock video. And then I got no choice. So that could happen. So we'll have to sort of see. But yeah, Atlas Engineering Products. One of the things I really like about them is that the materials that they make, a lot of it's used in construction. So as we start building more and more houses, I can see a huge demand for their products. So that's one of the reasons that I'm invested into them, for that reason as well. All right. Yes. Yeah, I knew that Brandon Beavis and Mark, they were looking, so that they officially went with Beavis Wealth. I think they had it narrowed down to Beavis Wealth or a few other different names as well. But I like Beavis Wealth. I think that's kind of good. Very cool. And I also really like their background. So they did a couple of videos with this kind of yellowish background behind them. I actually thought it was kind of cool because I've been sort of playing with the backgrounds that I've been using a bit, and I've been trying to go with this city thing, but I don't know if it's working. I have to keep playing with it. I know Jill doesn't like the current one, so the current city, but in playing with it, I've had AI create some really incredible looking cities. One of them was a city that all the buildings were made out of glass, and inside of them there were fish. I don't know why. I just made it. I was just playing around to see what I could come up with. So that's going to be really, really interesting. Yeah, that's the newsletter. Now this is one of the things I mean. It's very fun. Like I watch all of Mark's all of his news videos because I think he does a really good job on the news. Because he's more of I'd like to say he's more of a serious reporter when it comes to the news than I am. Because I'm just using the news as kind of a way for us to just sort of, pull up some topics. Maybe I'll bring up a news topic and it's interesting and it will spew some conversation. Or maybe it's just a footnote. And it's just like, yeah, we just did that one. Like who cares about Canadians passing on surveys? It was fodder. So sometimes, yeah, sometimes there's fodder in there because I have basically 8 news stories each week. And sometimes there just isn't 8 good ones out there. Sometimes you have like maybe 2 or 3 really good stories, and the rest are pretty much fodder. That's when I try to find some of these interesting ones that perhaps you wouldn't have found anywhere else. So you have to sort of see how it goes. Oh, there we go. I have the charm. And I have really bad humor too. So that's what I try to bring to it. Yeah, no, for me to be, I would never make a really good news reporter. For me to sort of sit there and try to be very straight faced about the news, I don't think I can do it because I'm going to throw my own little spin on it as I'm going. And that's kind of the whole fun, right? And that's, I think, one of the interesting things because I'll tell you about this here philosophy. So, somebody once was telling me that if you were to drive by, let's say you're out driving, you drive by a field and you look at that field, you took a glance at it as you drove by, and 5 minutes later, if somebody were to question you on that field, you'd be like, I might have glanced at it. I don't remember. It was probably just a field. So you really wouldn't know much about that field. But now let's suppose you're driving by that field and you took a glance out and there's a naked dude running across the field. Holy banana bread. Well, that field's going to be burned into your mind for the rest of your life. You're not going to forget that field. So that whole philosophy, right, is kind of the way I try to approach at least the channel and finance in general. Is that by making things kind of fun, by making things a little bit offbeat, a little bit fun. It just makes it a little bit more. It makes it easier to remember. And it makes it so that I'm not that field with nobody in it. I'm the field with the naked dude running across it. Boy, that's a scary, scary image. But that's the field that I try to live on. So that way, that's why I bring so much charm and odd little jokes, and sometimes I try to fish things in. And Cowichan says, fish buildings for bottom fishing videos. There we go. There we go. That would be kind of interesting. Now, one of the things I have been doing with this building, and I don't know if you guys notice this or not, but I tweak the colors every single video right now. So the color is slightly a little bit different. And this is hilarious. You should do the news on Saturday Night Live. You know that this live stream used to be on Saturday night and it was called Saturday Night Live Stream. So I'll just put that out there. So that's kind of funny. I thought about that. I thought of, it would be kind of neat to sort of do some sort of funny kind of satire type news as well. And not to say I won't do that somewhere. Maybe one of these celebration videos, when we hit milestones, we could do like a full-on satire news broadcast or something. So, hey, that's ideas sometimes get born in here. I think that's how the Hot Ones challenge happened, is we just happened to bring it up in here and then started thinking about it. And I was like, oh, that is a really good idea. So yeah, that could be a possibility. I think that would be fun because I personally like my humor. Jill doesn't. She groans at it. But I think, my humor sort of has, as a child, I watched a lot of British humor. So I've got that dryness to me as well. And I also loved offbeat humor. So I loved everything from Monty Python on the British side, Monty Python, Faulty Towers, things like that. But on the really weird side, I loved things like UHF or parodies like any of the Mel Brooks movies, for example. To me, I always find that both of those humors I like. I like both styles. Let's see. You and Rick Mercer should collaborate on a news program. That would be fun. I would be open to that. I don't think Rick Mercer has any idea who I am, unless he's like lurking here and trying to figure out what to do with his money. But I think that would actually be very funny. I think our sense of humors, I think, are a little bit. I think they're a little bit similar, and maybe it's because we both come from the Maritimes. But technically, I think he's Newfoundland, which is not technically the Maritimes, it's like the Atlantic provinces, but nonetheless, yeah, no, that would be kind of fun. Whew. All right. Well, we're getting up there. Do you guys, whatever questions you have, throw them in. I'll answer them. We'll keep this going for a little bit. Besides, we're waiting for Vic to show up, aren't we? If you remember earlier, I think one of the very first questions I had in this broadcast for anybody who's joined a bit late was, who do you think will show up an hour into the stream? And I made my guess. I chose Vic. And he hasn't shown up yet. So he might just show up towards the end. I think last week, oh God, who was it? I think it was Adventure Guy. I think Adventure Guy showed up right as I was logging out. Like I clicked on end stream and I saw him show up, and I was like, oh no. Do you think oil is headed up? Natural gas? Yes and yes. I think right now, yeah. We're heading into the colder seasons. So I do think we're going to have a higher demand. We've also got, there's a lot more war stuff going on. So that as well could pump up that demand. So right now, I would not, let's just say if I were somebody who was thinking about shorting something, it wouldn't be the energy sector. And am I bullish on TELUS? Yes and no. So short term, no. I think there's still some pain ahead. But long term, absolutely. I think it's a solid company. I think they're going to do well. Right now in the short term, and this is kind of where I'm kind of thinking about, is I think we still haven't fully yet felt the whole ramifications of that merger between Shaw and Rogers. Now, with part of that merger was Freedom Mobile moving over to become part of Quebecor. Now, interestingly enough, I did see in the news that Quebecor has laid off a whole bunch of people. So it seems to me like they're just not, Quebecor is not using that potential to their fullest. So that could be good for TELUS, Bell, as well as Rogers. So that might help. But right now, I would say mid to long term, yes, I'm bullish on TELUS. Short term, if you're looking for a short-term gain, TELUS is not your play. Chorus Aviation. I honestly haven't really looked a lot at Chorus Aviation, Mary, so I don't really have an opinion on them yet. But like I think a lot of different aviation companies, I think there's still a little bit of pain in there for a lot of the whole sector. So that might, like I said, I haven't really looked at Chorus Aviation. Vinit's in the building. So Vinit's actually seen some of these crazy AI things, these AI pictures I've been playing with. I sent a few of them, I think, over to Vinit. So that was kind of interesting. So what do you think of National Bank and Royal Bank? I like all of the banks. I like all of the big six. I think they're good investments long term. And it really boils down to, though, what your goals are. I think right now, if you're a passive income investor, then you probably want to be concentrating towards the higher dividend side of the six. But even then, I think once these have all recovered, and a bank like National Bank, actually, I think they've fallen a little bit less than everybody else. So I think they're a solid bank. I use National Bank for my direct brokerage as well. So let's see. Cineplex, keep an eye on that one. Reports next week. Cineplex is an interesting one. One of the interesting things about Cineplex is I keep thinking that the strike, like all of these strikes, are going to be, are going to really impact it. But they seem to be holding their own. People seem to be going back to the movies. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes. And right now, I know the writing strike is over, but right now the studios have given their final offer to the actors. I think they gave that to them like either early today or late last night. So we're still waiting to hear their response on that. But if we get lucky, this strike could be over by as early as tomorrow. if we get lucky. I mean, we'll still have to get ratified and everything, but could be very interesting. Let me see. Please explain dead cat bounce. I'm a newbie. Okay. So what happens is when when a stock is going, so when a market's going down, you don't go down in a straight line. So what will happen is you'll fall a certain amount, and then you will, it's almost like having a correction going down, but in the opposite direction. So, and actually, give me a second here. Let me see if I can. I just need to find something here. Because this is one of these things I think that it needs to be, it needs to actually be shown to make sense, I think. All right. Where did I stick it? Ah, here it is. All right. All right. I'm going to share a screen here. And we will share screen. Let's do it as a window. There we go. Share. All right. Perfect. And I'm going to, let's come over this way here. And just give me 1 second here. I'm going to turn off that other thing. See, I wasn't planning on doing this, so I'm totally unprepared, but that's fine. There we go. There we go. So let's do this here. I think I was doing that there for I don't know what. But okay, so the way a market goes when you're falling, right? You don't fall in a straight line like that. So what you'll do is you'll fall, and then you'll move back up, you'll fall. So this here, right here, is what you would call a dead cat bounce, because what you're doing is you haven't finished your fall, but you can't fall forever. The way a market works, so it's the same thing when you're going up, right? When you're going up, you don't just go up in a straight line. Whoops. You don't just go up in a straight line. You go up, and then you have corrections, and then you go up, correct, up, correct. The same thing happens going down, but you don't really call that a correction. A lot of people like to refer to it as a dead cat bounce. And it's sort of like, I don't know, I've never thrown a dead cat, but, I don't know why they came up with that term, to be honest. But it basically just means that instead of moving, whoops, I'm going to pull you guys back. Instead of just moving straight down, you have this little bounce here and there. And what happens is, sometimes when this does happen, when you're down at the bottom, whoops, let's go with this one so you guys can see. So when you're moving down, right, and then you start to move back up. Well, I don't know why it's not working. But anyway, if you look at the thing, when you're moving down and all of a sudden it changes around, you start going back up, people start to, they start to get a little bit more hopeful. They start to think, oh my God, it's over. Finally, everything is going back up. It's going to be great. But sometimes that is kind of deceptive. And then people kind of lose it when it falls back down again and it keeps on going. But you will find this come up. So whenever anybody's saying dead cat bounce, it's just a temporary move up to the green before you continue your fall on the red. All right, let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that screen. And there we go. Let's bring everything back up. So yeah, so that's your dead cat bounce. Vineet says, I feel so special. The pictures are amazing. Thank you. Yeah, it's just one of these things. You never know. Sometimes it's just, I'm just curious. It's like, I'll say, okay, well, here's some stupid idea. What can AI do? I think one of the pictures that I made for Vineet was a raptor throwing a pumpkin at a basketball hoop. So why? I don't know. Well, I think it was because I think actually Vineet said, so I'd sent something to him and he had sent me a message saying, what about the Raptors? And I was like, I think he was talking about the Toronto Raptors, but I was like, let's just do my own version of that. So that was basically what I had done. All right. All right, guys, we're heading a little bit late into the afternoon. If you guys got any burning questions, get them out now before we're done. Oops, there we go. Ah, there. I still had a little message saying that you're still sharing, and I was like, no, I wasn't, but that's now taken care of. Um, yeah. So, oh yeah, deep dive wise. We're probably going to be looking at Brookfield Corporation. So I'm kind of excited about this because I think there was a letter that got sent out recently, or an email, just talking about a little bit of changes going on there. So we'll get a chance to sort of look into that and figure that all out and get it all sorted out for people who are currently confused about what's happening over at Brookfield Corporation. Now, keep in mind, Brookfield Corporation is BN, so it's completely different than Brookfield Asset Management, even though they're the same company. But anyway, we'll get to that one. That's going to be kind of fun. Do we have anything else exciting coming up? Other than, as I mentioned earlier as well, we do have the live stream coming up at the middle of this month here. It's the membership live stream. So we'll just talk and we'll do whatever you guys want. So if you are currently a channel member, hit into the comments, throw your ideas up there because I'll do what you guys want me to do. Probably the only thing I'm not going to do again is a reaction video, only because I did that for you guys at one time, and that's the only time I've ever gotten a copyright claim. I'm like, what? Really? On a private video? Because, well, I guess a membership video, it's technically private, but anyway, that happened. There might be a way there's probably some things I could probably do reactions to. I just don't. Yeah, and even then, it doesn't matter. I mean, if somebody claims it, it's not like because I don't put any. I turn all of the monetization off of those videos. So we're doing that. So yeah, okay. Oh, I wanted to talk about that. So yeah, when I was creating that challenge, one of the issues that I had was how much do I want to put in every month? Do I want to put in 400 or do I want to put 500? And I was thinking it should be 500, should be 500. But I went with 400. And then after a while, I was just sitting here and I'm like, that really should have been 500 just because one, it makes the math so much easier, makes it. So I've changed it to 500. So the challenge is still up and going. So what I did do, and the channel members know about this, is for the first 4 months, they should have been 500 each. So I had 400 extra sitting there. So I threw that in. I bought a few more shares and a few of the stuff that I already had. Didn't buy any new shares, though, of anything. Only pre-existing stuff. So that'll come out as well in the next update. So yeah, every month there will be an update on this. It's a challenge, right? Until we get to $100,000, that challenge is going to be alive. So, 15 years from now, if we're not at 100,000 at that $500 a month, then it's we're going to be still going. So that will be definitely every month. The other little change I'm starting to make with that one as well is I was going to have the thumbnail the same for all of them just to make them easy to see. But I mean, heck, they have their own playlist, so you can see them that way. So I'm going to try to have a couple of elements in them that'll be the same in each of those thumbnails, but I'm going to change it up a little bit. That way there are people, because what ends up happening, and I thought about it, is that somebody who's already watched one, if it looks exactly the same, but says episode 5, and it's everything looks mostly the same, they can easily say, oh, I already watched that one, and miss out on it. So yeah, I'm going to do a few little changes that way to it, and we'll probably mess around with it, over the next year, 2 years, 10 years, whatever. We'll mess around with it as we go a little bit. But yeah, and I mean, a lot of it too will be input. Like if you guys are saying, hey, let's do, here's a statistic I want to see, or here's something I'd like to see, or here's a company I really think you should add to it. I'll listen to you guys. We'll, take everything under advisement, of course. Oh, thank you. You're the best. Ah, I try. Thank you. And thanks for the stream. Yes, you're very welcome. So yeah, exactly. And that's what I thought. $500 makes more sense, and it is absolutely easier. And it also keeps me much closer to what Robin Haney is doing, because we started our challenges around the same time. So we're looking actually somewhere down the road of doing a collab between the two of us just to sort of compare the two challenges. So that's something that you guys have to look forward to. Those of you who perhaps follow both channels, then that would be totally exciting. I'm still very disappointed that Vic hasn't shown up yet because, but then I haven't left yet. I haven't yet. He'll show up when I hit the end stream button. Either that or he'll, I'll get some messages from him in the comments. So normally he's driving home from somewheres on Sundays. So anyway, it has been another fantastic afternoon. It's always fun to spend some time with you guys. And, you guys have been pretty darn active today. And congratulations once again to those of you who did win a free channel membership back. Yeah, exactly. Vic forgot to set his clock back. That's true. Well, that was the funny thing. I woke up this morning, I normally get up around 6 a.m., but I woke up about 5 and I just stayed in bed and I said, nope, no matter what you do, just force yourself to lay in bed until it's 6. Don't get up before then. So I did that. And, I'll do that tomorrow morning as well, just until my body gets used to it. And, and then it gets all that fun. We really shouldn't have daylight savings time. Let's just stick to the same time. Saskatchewan has it right. That's my opinion. All right. Anyway, everybody, thank you once again for being here. It was fantastic. And thanks to those of you at home watching it there. Well, I mean, not at home, but those of you watching the after show. Thank you for that too. That means you go to bed at 8. No, I do not go to bed at 8. I usually aim to go to bed around about 10. I try to get 8 hours sleep, right? So yeah, 10. Sometimes it's later. It really just depends. I feel old now when I say I go to bed at 10, but holy banana bread, that's fine. Anyway, everybody, I will see you guys again back here next week. We'll have more fun. Hopefully have some really interesting stories. And now I keep thinking about the parody news. Maybe I'll bring a news story next week that'll be a parody one. And then you'll have to guess which one is parody and which, I don't know. Anyway, we'll figure that out. I'll see you guys next week. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.